Don't dramatize. Come on, John. It's not that dramatic. Yeah, I see. Today I am trying again to do LinkedIn, but it seems like it's not working. So I think we are live, supposed to be,
We are
right?
live.
We are live.
Yes.
Shall we unmask?
Yes. Let's unmask the humor.
Okay.
Unmasking.
Yes, let's do
Now
it.
that I
That's
figured
the-
out how to mask, now I'm going to.
You can stay, the way you are, John. If you don't want to unmask the humor, then I don't know.
It's the earphones that.
Of course.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it's all about funny. So
Okay, I will be keep an eye on Irene's appearance because so far I don't see her. Oh, it seems like. Let me see
Here
if
she
it's
comes.
Irene or not. Yes, she's coming.
hi.
Yeah, Irene, you already missed part of fun. I don't know. So we'll be laughing, just three of us, and you have no idea what we are laughing about, right? Is it? It's already funny. Yes, it's funny.
It's funny because I struggle with my tech and I say, what am I doing now?
Yeah, well.
3 minutes.
So we were laughing and you were struggling. So that's how we are entering into the room. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Today, yeah, John, please, everything we are in your hands as you as a chief facilitator.
I was gonna suggest we make Alice chief today, since she came
yeah.
up with this amazing Alice. Alice, are you comfortable with that?
Absolutely, I'm sure.
Sure. Why not? It could only be funny.
I know, because you came up with this wonderful, unmasking of humor, and I just felt like, this is something that you created and generated. So if you're comfortable leading the
I will start it off. Well, I came up with it. We were thinking how humor can be a healing property and how we can use it in everyday life. And most of the time when people think of humor, they think, oh, that's just something funny. But as we were talking last week after we went off the air, we were saying how we use humor in different ways. And we were sharing with each other how sometimes humor can show up in a very inappropriate time. So when I was thinking about the title, I said, well, maybe that's what we should do. We should unmask the humor. Since we're going around every day and we're wearing masks, let's just take off our mask and invite humor in. So that's how I came up with the title. All the different things that we call humor. We have dark humor and we have highbrow humor and lowbrow humor, and just all different ways. So I thought maybe we could share with each other some of the ways or some of our thoughts on humor. Nice. So who would like to start?
You go.
Well,
who goes?
John.
Okay. Nice. I knew it. I knew he's the baldy. Okay.
Well, so this has been interesting because through the course of the week, I've been thinking about this for myself. The first kind of level of awareness that I had is that I actually haven't been using humor as often as I normally do. And so I realized that I have been lacking humor because I've been so, kind of engrossed in everything that's been happening. And what I did was I thought back about all the times that I did use humor. And what was interesting is I was pretty much known for kind of the smile and the laugh when I worked in the corporate setting. Even in the most difficult and challenging times, I would kind of move into this space of creating humor. And this is where this idea of, is it appropriate or is it not appropriate? The way that I did it, though, is I often would make fun of myself. And that was a way that I was able to make it safe for everybody, because I was using myself as part of that humor. But what I recognized, again, sometimes it does require us to reflect back. And for me, I realized how it actually did in some ways heal those people around me when they were really stressed out, when they were at this place where it just was too intense. If I brought in that humor, there was a healing capacity around it. There was a lightness around it. And again, because I was making fun of myself, it would even be, even for me, sometimes it's the way I use my voice that created some of the humor and the laughter. But the power that humor does have, not only on others, but for me to recognize that the power is also with our own physiology, that it does relieve stress. And so again, my recognizing now that I haven't really been using humor over the past 6 months. I think once in a while it will show up. But what it made me think about was, okay, how can it's not so much that it's intentional, but how can I make sure that I remember the power of that humor and lighten things up? And let me just share really quickly. After we get off this phone, my family and I are going camping. And
Nice.
People who know me, not in my younger years, but in my adult years, are really having a hard time understanding that I am going camping. And my best friend, who's known me for 30 years, said to me last night, "Do you have a tent? Do you have, are you ready to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, we've been collecting things over the years to anticipate having a camping trip." I said, we've got,
Nice.
sleeping bags that we've never used, and we've got a tent that's only been set up outside in our front yard. But really, the reality is that the four of us are going on this expedition that is going to be absolutely unknown. And as I found myself getting ready this morning, I'm starting to get anxious, right? What if and and I camped as a kid. And so I'm drawing upon some of those things, but how funny it was is that most people who knew me were like, "Come on, John, really? You have a tent? You have, I have little burners that I can cook on and pots and pans to use." So I am really going to try hard to make sure that I keep this light and really look at these moments with as much humor as possible and inject that humor as well, because I know that's going to relieve my stress a little bit. And as I was getting off the phone with my friend, she asked me about bears, because we're going into the mountains. And she's like, "What are you going to do if a bear shows up?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to bang my pots that I brought with me." I said, "That's how you do it, and you hang your food." I mean, we're not really going to rough it that much. But again, here's an opportunity. When I reflected and not really using much humor recently, here's an opportunity that's presenting itself to allow me to move into that space, to lighten it up a little bit, because my boys have no clue what camping is like. Okay.
Wow.
So this is
Wow.
So when the owls are hooting at night and when there's, the twigs are crackling behind the tent, it's going to be a whole mystery, but it's going to be funny. And I want to make this as light and funny as possible.
Yeah. Well, John,
Yeah.
you mentioned two things that just dawned on me. One, when you say you use humor to make fun of yourself, to desensitize. Humor is a good way of desensitizing. And the other, when you said that you were going camping. Now, I always love to go camping, but there have to be one thing nearby, a good hotel. Because I am not sleeping on the ground. I mean, I will walk in the woods, but I will not sleep on the ground. I want to go check into a good hotel and sleep in a soft bed. So I really understand that part about you're not really into camping, but go for it, John. I have faith in you.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
You
So,
need to, yeah.
Irina, what would you like to share about humor?
Are you talking with me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, when John was thinking about that, I immediately my mind goes the first time I slept in a tent, and we were in a training, and there were people in the house, and there were no other places. We were just two people in two different tents, and it was ridiculous because I say I don't go in an hotel less than 4 stars usually. I want to be very comfortable. I want to be also, I love cuddles from this great comfort, and suddenly I find myself on the ground trying to sleep, and the only imagine I had in my mind, a lumberjack with the axe that wants to kill me.
Nice.
That's any rumor, anything, any movement. I felt there was this lumberjack with the great axe, with the burning eyes that wants to kill me. And I say, maybe I look at a lot of horror films. I have to stop these habits. And it was ridiculous because I stayed, I don't know how many hours awake, thinking about all the horror films in that moment, and all the people was to kill me. And suddenly came up another thoughts in myself. Don't you think you perceive yourself as so important that the entire world wants to kill you?
I bet that's what the world is dreaming. Yes.
Yes. And so then I wait that I say there is the only way to sleep now. It's waiting that I'm exhausted with these thoughts and let all the things happen. And I slept. I don't know how many hours, but I woke up early in the morning because I was I listened the sound of the birds, and they like slightly sweet. Because there was always this threat with the man with the axe, but it was funny. And I say, this is the first and last, I think, time I sleep in a tent.
Wow.
Well, when you talk about the lumberjack, Irina, and then the way John was talking about how he never camped, but he's going to go for it, it reminded me how our mind can take over and just start running. It's like something is behind us in our mind, and we're just constantly running. And everything is the same about us, but our mind go to a completely different place. So I'm sure Alex has a great story to share with us about his mind going to a different place.
Well, yeah, in terms of camping, I actually have like a deep, relationship with camping, because I camped a lot when I was young, and I was competing kind of in the camping. There are, that there are competitions there, how quickly you could put a tent, like for example, 1 minute, So there are lots of interesting things, and I was actually enjoying camping a lot. I mean, I think it's amazing stuff. And but in terms of humor, the humor for me really associated with some kind of really nice, deep relaxation. I mean, I do believe that humor is, maybe it's physiologically kind of works in such a way that the muscles of your face and the posture and certain type of breathing. I mean, maybe right now I'm talking like more, a little bit like professional, because in coaching, I think we use elements of humor, quite a lot, because it's the best way to relax and establish some good relationship, with the client, for example. But I think it's a very, very natural kind of human property, because I believe that's one of the major, I would say, differences which you could say differentiate us from animals. I mean, well, I haven't seen my cat to have a sense of humor, for example. Maybe they do. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting topic.
That's
I mean, they're actually playful, but I'm not sure about humor. I mean, I never seen them laughing. But yeah, that would be. It's like if they're like like shaking a little bit. That would be nice to catch them in that doing that. Yeah. But I think it's a very deeply kind of human property, and the ability to relax and ability to see the world in a completely shockingly different perspective. I think that's what triggers kind of change of perspective. That's what in a way kind of humor is. Suddenly you inject in your perspective completely different one, and when those two perspectives are clashing, then the spark could happen. Not always, sometimes, but when it does, that's probably what humor is. It's like, in my mind, I explain it this way. I think it's an incredible phenomena.
Yeah. Well, most of when I think about humor, it's funny now, but it's kind of a reflection. Like Irene was talking about her story, and John was talking about how he used it. And one of the stories that come to my mind, and it's funny now, but it definitely wasn't funny at the time. It was kind of like I was like Irina was. I was traveling for work, and we went to this hotel, and big old beautiful hotel in, I think maybe in Michigan or somewhere. And when I got to the register, to the counter to sign in, I remember the concierge, he was looking at me and he kept saying, "It's going to be okay." And I was like, whatever, I got off the plane, I'm tired. And he looked at me and he said, "It's going to be okay." I'm like, really, what's wrong with this guy? And he said, then he pat my hand. "It's going to be okay." Okay, this guy's really weird. So I get my key, I go up to my room, and I get to my door, and I'm in room 666.
Oh, I see.
And I'm like, no, no, it's not okay. So
I see.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in this room because I know, and I've watched horror movies. And John, I know you know this movie. You guys might know it too. It's the one where they go to this hotel and it's this long hall and the guy go crazy, him and his wife.
The Shining.
What?
The Shining.
Shining, yeah. And
Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah, those little girls are in the hall. Well, every night when I would have to come out, the hall would just immediately get really, really long. And I'm like, okay, I have to go down this hall and get to the elevator before those little girls come. And every night I would come out and I would run really fast. And I would go and get in the elevator. And then when I come back in the evening from the conference, I had to look, and the hall just immediately would get so long. And I just knew those two little girls would show up. So
was it funny then?
No, it was. That's what amazed me about some humor, how at the time it takes your mind just take over and reality is no more. You know, your mind is in control, and it's like you start remembering all these things that could happen or you saw in a movie, and none of this is real. But you know, you can feel your heart racing, and in hindsight, it's really funny. But it definitely was not funny then. So that's how, to me, humor is always funny in hindsight. But when you're going through it sometime, it's a completely different story. So, John, what do you think about that? How the mind can take over and just take control and make later is funny, but use a situation that we're in.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think about like just all it was a number, you know, on your door, but that number inside of you represented something. It represented evil or whatever. And you're absolutely right. And like the lumberjack, right? The association of movies, things that somehow, and this is what I think is so powerful about our brain, that we've stored this inside of ourselves, and how fascinating it can come out, right? In these moments that we said really aren't real, but we create, that's the power of our brain. You know, and this idea, I think, too, of, you know, as you were speaking, and the idea of it being funny afterwards, it's that whole thing about what can we do to make it funny now? What can we do to shift that mindset into, oh my gosh, this is silly, you know, whatever, the lumberjack or the bears or the number, you know, or any of those things. And that's what was coming up for me is, how do we, and we keep talking about this, that little pause, that little gap, that we have this opportunity to create a shift, right? And, you know, and I think about sometimes when I'm getting ready to say something that might not be really nice, and I know that the reaction is going to start this whole process, right? You know, whatever is going to come out of my mouth is going to create tension. And I really tried hard to be in that space and actually make light of it, and usually try to make it light about myself, you know, and minimize that tension. But I think what's very powerful is when we can go into that space of humor. Alex was talking about this. It's very well known that the chemicals in our body change, that we get the pleasure chemicals that in our limbic system that really start changing and making us feel better. You know, when we're in that stress mode, that's where the cortisol, all of those things that really make us tighten up, and that really is unhealthy. And so I think there is so much power to humor. It's just that how can we move into that space because the reality is that, you know, in the big picture for me of life, it's kind of funny. We're seeing a lot of sad stuff, and we are, but I think there's a lot more funny things that we could actually look at and make light of, or at least find something, you know what I mean, that would make us laugh or smile about it. But, you know, again, where is our mindset? And I know where mine has been. It's been focused on the heavy stuff. And now I have an opportunity to shift that and try to go into a lighter place, you know, and it can't do it all the time. I know that.
Yeah.
But the power of humor and the power of what it does with our body and what it can do for other people is really amazing. It truly is.
So, Irene, Alex, what do you think about that? Us being able to recognize, okay, this is reality, but how can we bring the humor into this? You know,
That's exactly what I was thinking right now. I'm listening, John, and he's John. You are kind of connecting your trip with opportunity of the shift, and how to bring humor. And but I'm just thinking, it's interesting that opportunity of some event or some change, and we are trying to associate it with the humor. So instead of just bringing humor where you are, it's like somehow the idea of humor is that actually it's supposed to be the attitude. I mean, it's supposed to be some kind of habit. And the question is in my mind right now: what kind of habit do we have in relation to humor on our everyday normal routine? Because unfortunately, those trips and they are, as I understood, John, not often, right?
No.
Okay, it's nice. Now we laughed a little bit. No, yes, I just don't want us to end up laughing kind of and have opportunity so rare, and would be nice to think, is there any way, but I heard the story about some saint, the monk, and he was very famous. I don't know, I think it was in Italy, some kind of very famous saint, and they call him laughing saint or something, because every morning when the monastery kind of woke up, they were woke up with a huge, because of the huge laugh. I mean, every morning he was opening his day with an incredible laugh, very loud and long. And yeah, I was just thinking that, imagine that kind of situation, that kind of habit of looking at the world as a one of the opportunities is to kind of look at many things in your life as a game, as something is not as serious. And for me, it's easy to say, because I remember when I met my wife, and one of the things she told me very after maybe 2-3 kind of meetings with her, she said, "Why do you have that PhD face all the time?" I said, "What? What face is that? What is a PhD face?" I mean, she said, "You're so serious, damn." I was like, "Wow, I have no idea." I mean, and yeah, and she was later. She told me that she was really deeply concerned that I have no sense of humor. Wow. I mean, later, of course, everything was kind of clear that actually I'm laughing all the time. But but the first impression was I was really serious, and that's what kind of impression we have on people. And I think it's really important to be aware that what kind of habits we have around the humor, and if we can make it better or install some habits, would be nice to know how.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's my contribution to our discussion.
What do you think about that, Irene?
Well, I practice laughing all the day and all day long with my sister. And just for example, we have a ritual to, when we wake up, it's like being, the I don't know if you know Notre Dame de Paris from Victor Hugo. They make also a cartoon, Quasimodo. I woke up like that. So the morning starts like that, so we can settle down the mood of the day. But also I do it with my mother. Humor changes completely our relationship, because it was a disaster before I decided to apply humor as a attitude between ourselves. And today there was a moment really tricky, because she said that my nephews was exaggerating with some word and all this, and I said, "Mom, you know that hyperbole is legal, it's not forbidden." So it's just lighten all the things that happen. And for my sister and I is an attitude. So if you came in our house, you think these people are totally crazy, because we don't stop to laugh all the time. Even when we cry or we have sadness, something happened that immediately shifts the mood. And the more that you practice, the more is natural. And I agree with Alex. It is a complete. You can feel, you can sense the physical changes. And also to add something, some information is it boosts very much the immune system. Laughing a lot because creates the oxytocin, serotonin, and all the hormones that protect our body and our immune system. So there is also the laughing yoga, for example. That is a yoga that practice laughing, and it is a wonderful practice. And just um, anytime something sad happen, we could try to see in a different way, in a humoristic way, what is hilarious here. Because sometimes we get angry or sad for no reason. Really, it's just the film that we watch all the time in our mind. As you said, Alice, the mindset. Um, yes, there are moments when we feel that we are not capable to practice humor, but if something really happened, I think we are able to
Yeah.
live the not so serious life.
Yeah. I think when John mentioned that if we could just hone in on it while it's happening, during this whole pandemic, that's what I've really been trying to do. At the first day that they told us that it came on TV, and our mayor said that we were going to be in start to have a curfew at, I think he said 6 o'clock on Friday night. That was going to be new rules. Immediately, I my mind, it was almost like pushing a light switch because my mind went somewhere completely different. And I started, I didn't know exactly what it was. You know how sometimes when you hear something, you have some kind of feeling inside, but you really can't identify it. Well, I had that feeling inside. That was a Friday. Then that Saturday morning, I got up, I made a cup of coffee, and I went and sit by a window in my house and I drink my coffee. And I sit there all day because cars come up and down this street, but I saw no cars. I got up, I went to the door, and I went outside on the porch and I looked back and forth. No cars. I couldn't see any people. I come back in. All day on Saturday, I sit looking out that window waiting for cars. Okay, now I love to write and I've watched lots of horror movies growing up. So on Sunday morning, I still didn't see any cars. So my mind go back into the movies. And I'm thinking, okay, all the people have disappeared. There's no one on earth with me. And I'm standing there on the porch and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to survive. So I'm going to have to go in these different houses of these people houses and get food to eat.
And littering, yes, exactly.
Yes, and my mind is just running. So I come back in, I sit in my chair, and I hear a car. So I jump up and I run out on the porch, and the car is coming by, and I'm waving and waving, and the guy hit his brakes and he backed back because he's like, something is wrong. And I say, oh, I thought you were someone else. And then I knew immediately, I have to change this. I will never make it through. So now, anytime I see myself going that way, I think about that. And I immediately find the humor in that present moment. I desensitize myself. And but that was really weird that I just went all into the twilight zone. And I knew, okay, this is not a good place to be. So if some way we can hone in on that humor, the funny part, because it's usually something funny in everything we do. I mean, like John said, life is funny. So if we can hone in on that. So as we, I guess, get ready to close this out, what would everyone, John, Irina, Alex, give us parting thoughts that we could use to go into this next week in a happy, humorous way?
Well, I think, again, I keep saying there is power in humor, and there's something about it, and I think the other side is when you were sharing your story, Alice, the idea of how that man reacted, right? Understanding that people outside of us too are in this place sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going like, "Who's that crazy lady out on her porch waving?" And he also went to that place. So it's recognizing also how others respond. But that to me says even more how important it is to have humor, not only for our bodies, and when Irene was talking about yoga, I was thinking when we're laughing, and I think about when I really laugh, which again was a trademark for me at work because people could hear me down the hall. And they say, "Oh, there's John again. There's John again." But there was so much power in that. And I used to have people come up to me and say, because I heard you laughing, I started laughing. They had no idea what I was laughing about. But the mere thought that the fact that they heard me, it's like a yawn. When somebody yawns, we all yawn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there again is power in how it can impact others, but how it impacts us, even in a healthy way. And when we really laugh, we're breathing, we're bringing in that air, and we're creating a whole different reaction in our body. So again, for me, it's like, how can I embrace this moment of looking at the lighter side of things and really trying to look at the funny parts of life? So we'll see, the camping trip is going to unfold, and I'm going to be very mindful about how I can stay in that space as much as possible.
And Irene, how would you like to leave us laughing?
Oh, well, as John said, I was one of the specialist laugher in my workplace before becoming a coach. So, and with this way of laughing that infects all the environment, I became a legend for them. And think about that. I was the second of the only two women in a male environment. And I think I learned a lot from male. They usually have more sense of humor, and it was fantastic because it was really transformational. And I practice in my home, and sometimes in some coaching session, or facilitation when I facilitate in WBEX, and it's very powerful because also we learn more about human. After this session, because I'm writing another book, I think about now how can I introduce storytelling that can open up to a scientific discussion in a humoristic way, because I think that we learn even more by laughing. And this is how I leave this session today.
Okay, thank you, Irene. And Alex, what would What PhD face laughter would you like to give to us?
PhD phase thinking what kind of theory to come up with about humor and make it very, very structural and serious. Yeah. No, yeah, I am just actually thinking about that. Sometimes sometimes it's totally fine to do almost like a half step towards humor, because not always we are able maybe to come up with the laughing. Laughing is ideal, but what I am saying is that sometimes it's actually enough just be a little bit playful, and that one is very easy to do. I mean, I just trying to recall some kind of rituals which I created, and one thing is come up. Yeah, just remember that practically every year, and except this one, we are traveling, me and my wife, and sometimes with the friends. We are making some kind of round trip, road trip we call it, and the last one I remember was maybe we like 10, 12 countries. We made like a huge circle. We were in Switzerland, then Germany, then went to France, and then kind of around the like a big circle, and end up eventually in Italy, and then back to Switzerland. And I remember what we were playing every time we crossed to the new country. I remember I actually, because the radio eventually starts kind of talking that language, next one, and I was the kind of I was the funny thing was I was actually speaking the language, the country which I am in. Have no idea about language, but kind of trying to like, for example, yeah, like when I'm in Germany, I have no idea kind of what it means. So is any actually correct? And everybody was laughing because they say, it does look like, sounds like German, for example. Of course, probably not even one word is really. And then we moved to the French, like je dois le dire pécule, and everybody like, wow, what did you just say? I said, yeah. And it was, you see that it's not, it's more like you start playing and eventually you could end up in a very, very good place. And to be honest, I remember once we were in Brazil, and I started to speak actually with people, and my wife like, are you speaking again imaginary language? I said, no, actually I know Portuguese, come on. And yeah, but you see that it's like the whole atmosphere was really, really funny. It was funny, but I mean, we could inject that funny thing through some simple, playful kind of habits, and those things can be created. Those things are not as difficult, because if you say how to laugh every day, well, it's a little bit kind of maybe it's not as kind of easy in terms of habit, but being playful when you walk in a funny way, like children do, or jumping. I mean, that's easy. This is not really a big deal at all. And I believe that half step towards that direction is actually doable. Yeah, that's what, yeah, that's what I wanted to kind of to finish our session with, is kind of suggestion that we could just make a half step towards that direction. It's already, and it will be already good. It would be a really powerful impact in our lives.
Yeah, I agree. That's really something good to leave us with, that it's not intentional, it's just relaxing. It's just relaxing. One of the things I often have spoken to John about, how my dad used to tell me all these things. And one of the things he told me that I would like to leave is, he always said, learn to laugh early in life, because it helps you to wait on your prayers coming true. And
Nice.
that's what I've always tried to do. Okay, I'm just going to laugh about this. I know I prayed about it. It's not happening. I'm going to laugh about it until my prayers come true. So with
Very nice.
that, I guess we will close this session, and we will be back next week laughing, sharing, doing something for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone. Gonna press